Okay everybody, Tectalar here again with the 12th episode of the Heroes Appendix video series. Its purpose is to help newer and veteran players alike to fully understand the ins and outs of all the characters in Hero Wars Mobile. In today's video, we are reviewing the first place winner of the most recent vote amongst my patrons, and probably one of the most misrepresented tanks who, despite being at the top of the tier list, is relatively underused in comparison. Ziri. She boasts the largest health pool and armor rating in the entire game of any unit. She's one of the hardest tanks to overtake if she's built to a higher level than the opponent, and her defensive mechanics, mitigation, levels of protection she offers to her allies are completely unrivaled. Today, we'll discuss why Ziri is atop the tank tier list and why she just might be the best tank for you. In today's video, we are going to be discussing her skills, how they visually appear, and their uses both practically and strategically, when to use Ziri, when not to use her, her roles in the team, skin priority order, artifact priority order, and glyph stat priority order. First up is Ziri's activatable skill, Focus of Hatred, which is commonly referred to as her ultimate because this is the ability she can use once her yellow energy gauge is filled during battle. Ziri will grow in size and 4 scorpion husks will circle around her body, which culminates with a large transparent husk settling in front of Ziri, offering her additional protection for the duration. Ziri will also have a purple spiral effect under her feet looking like a quicksand sinkhole, signaling that she is now the target for all attacks dealt on the battlefield. This skill temporarily raises Ziri's armor and magic defense and forces the entire enemy team to focus her for the next 8 seconds. It is the only true taunt mechanic in the game. A note is that a common misconception is that the armor and magic defense bonus of 150% is that this increase of her armor and magic defense value is 1.5 times, when in actuality it's a 2.5 times bonus since it's an increase of 150% and not 150% of her armor and magic defense. This is actually a pretty crazy statistic to play around with, and when you consider other passive bonuses are cumulative and are also multiplied by this effect. For example, the higher you have Ziri's artifact weapon, the more monstrous she can become, since her artifact weapon can achieve higher values than her actual armor. So, she effectively gets more than a 3.5 times armor increase, and is the only hero able to break 100,000 armor in the game with only one artifact active. This also scales with other heroes' weapon buffs such as Thea for magic defense or even Faceless's passive magic defense bonus. Another note is since the multiplier on this skill is so high, this is a very effective counter to teams who are relying on armor penetration artifact weapons to deal damage to your team if you time your ultimate in tandem with theirs. You will more than negate the effect since you still get the 2.5 times multiplier from Ziri's base armor, meaning she can exceed 72,000 armor even if the enemy's armor penetration buff equals your armor buff. Finally, when discussing the taunt aspect of this skill and focusing the damage of the enemies onto Ziri, this applies to the focus of the skill itself, which means if there is a byproduct of the skill that deals damage, she will not absorb those hits. For example, Kira's Ricochet from basic attacks, Faceless's Slam, Corvus's Altar, and Jorgen's Leper ability. It only makes Ziri the primary target. In this regard, she can take over Leper's effects, but her taunt will need to be active when Leper is cast. So, Ziri will be the one to be slammed by Faceless or take the first hit of Kira's basic attack, which could potentially protect units in front of Ziri if your team is laid out that way. However, Kira's ultimate cannot go past Ziri. Luther will leap onto Ziri and not your backline. Cornelius will ult Ziri instead of whoever has the highest intelligence. All 6 of Orion's missiles will target Ziri. Hopefully you're starting to see the big picture now and how Ziri's mitigation and protection is completely unrivaled, as nobody else is able to redirect all attacks to themselves, and 8 seconds is an incredibly long duration. Ziri's second skill is called Reflection of Pain. Ziri will lean back and pull back her human hands like she is going to push outwards, and bring them both towards the target and down in a scratching motion, and a number of purple lines will circle around Ziri's body almost looking like a razor blade. This skill will reflect 100% of physical damage that Ziri receives back to the attacker for 8 seconds. A note with this skill is that she counters the unmitigated physical damage dealt by the enemy, so if you ignore Ziri's armor completely and calculate the damage she would have received, that's how much damage she reflects back, even if she mitigates that damage. This damage she reflects will check against the target's armor for the damage calculation, so in essence, as if the target were hitting themselves, but it uses Ziri's armor penetration value instead of their own. This skill can be used once every 18 seconds. Ziri's third skill is called Shelter of Sands. Once Ziri falls below 30% health, she dives underground so only her scorpion tail and legs can be seen above ground, and she begins to heal herself over 7 seconds for 10% of her health plus 48,000. This skill is more potent the lower Ziri's max health is, making her particularly hard to kill at lower levels. Once she is maxed out, if the opponent is not sufficiently built, this skill can prevent her from ever dying against many opponents. This skill can activate once every 15 seconds and is signified by a white bar near her health bar. Ziri's fourth skill is called the Fury of Akrab Yumi. Ziri's passive skill affects her Shelter of Sands ability, that when she resurfaces from burrowing underground and healing herself, she will knock back the enemies slightly who are close to her, since the enemies can stand on top of her or even advance beyond her, and it will push them in whatever direction they are in relation to her. Depending on your opponent's setup, this could be extremely detrimental to them based on their abilities your team uses and their attack ranges, etc. This skill will also stun the knockback enemies for 3 seconds, and Ziri will immediately use her Reflection of Pain skill. Let's take a deeper look now and see when you should be using Ziri. The first time up is as your main tank, with an off-tank. An off-tank is categorized by a bulky second position unit who is able to effectively take hits while Ziri is temporarily unable to do so, which is during her burrow. Examples of possible off-tank options include Rufus, Astaroth, Galahad, Marcus, Lilith, Andvari, Krista, Ju, Jorgen, and in some instances, Maya, Arachne, Dante, and Judge. The second time to consider using her is if your opponents have a high amount of physical damage on their team, and you have access to one or more armor penetration artifact weapons. The reason being is, especially during war, you can time your armor penetration weapons in tandem with Ziri's second skill, Reflection of Pain, which ensures that Ziri is going to counter-attack all physical damage dealt to her and dealing completely unmitigated damage to the enemy, and could possibly kill some enemy units like Kira, Elmir, Ishmael, Dante, Sebastian, Daredevil, etc., pretty much any agility-based hero in just a few hits. The third time to consider using her is if your opponent has multiple frontline units who have a short attack range. So, when your Ziri burrows, they will advance on top of her and be displaced even more, and you can capitalize on more enemies being stunned. Another time to consider is that if the enemy has one armor penetration artifact weapon, because you can utilize Ziri's first skill timed along with the enemy's armor penetration weapon. Because of her 2.5 times multiplier, it will completely negate their bonus. And the last time to consider using her is on defense in particular with one or more healers, because some teams who attack you may not realize they don't have enough damage to bring Ziri down. Now we'll take a look at when you should be avoiding Ziri in your team. And really, the only time to consider that is if you don't have an off-tank. If you don't have the proper secondary tank for your team, once she burrows, she could find your backline in deep trouble. Now we'll briefly discuss her roles in the team as they were just mentioned previously. Her main role is the primary tank for your team, so you'll want to ensure she is your frontmost unit. Ziri's first skill makes her one of the most ideal tanks in virtually every situation, because she has unrivaled mitigation from both physical and magic attacks while her first skill is active. Partnering her with a unit like Faceless, who passively grants magic defense, or heroes with defensive artifact weapons in general, can stall out unsuspecting enemy teams. In this segment, we'll be discussing her skins, which can be tough to obtain if your guild isn't in Gold League. The top priority skin is her Devil skin, which offers her 10,650 armor, which yields the largest boost to her mitigation and survivability, which is about 36% of her total armor. The second in priority is her Champion skin, which offers 106,872 health, and is the next biggest for her in survivability. The third in priority is her Cybernetic skin, which offers a slightly lower 106,645 health, and is the next biggest for her survivability. And then the last in priority is her Default skin, which offers 56,400 health and 1,365 physical attack, as well as a small amount of critical hit resistance. Next, we'll discuss artifact priority, which means which artifact is the most important to level up first. First up is the Artifact Book, which grants her 8,010 armor and 8,010 magic defense. This will ensure she's able to mitigate the most amount of damage possible consistently throughout the whole fight, and gives her the biggest bonus combined between armor and magic defense for her first skill multiplier. Second in priority is her Artifact Weapon, Akreb Yumi's Sting. The armor bonus from this will not only help her team, but also enables her to cancel out armor penetration artifact weapons and gives her a gigantic multiplier for her first skill to ensure she can take the most punishment during her taunt phase. And then lastly is her Ring, which grants her 3,900 physical attack and 159,600 health, which is about 20% of her total health, as well as a small amount of critical hit resistance, but mitigation is most important for her, particularly early on. In addition, she gets a lot of health from other sources. In our final segment, we will be discussing glyph stat priority. So what that means is, of all the stats your hero can get, which ones are the most important for you to upgrade to yield the best results. The first glyph to choose is her armor, which offers 3,360 armor and the biggest boost to her primary mitigation. The second glyph is magic defense, which offers 3,360 magic defense, and helps her ward off magic attacks as effectively as possible, which can help defend against units like Celeste and Satori, who are very commonly used. The third glyph is health, which offers 30,800 health, and offers the most for her overall survivability from the remaining glyphs. The fourth glyph in priority is strength, which gives 560 physical attack and 22,400 health, which helps her reach her peak health and offers additional minor crit resistance. The fifth glyph to choose is her physical attack, which adds 2,240 physical attack. There's not much to say beyond that. None of her abilities are affected by her physical attack. It's only her basic attack affected by it. So there's not really any real need to level this particular glyph, unless it's the very last glyph of all your units that you're planning to level. Okay, everybody. Hopefully you found this video informative. If you do, please like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Another thing to consider is recommending my content to your friends as well if you know they yearn for knowledge of the game. Since these videos are private, word of mouth is how they will get spread. Also, for a large and active Hero Wars mobile community, join my Facebook group called Hero Wars Mobile Community The GOAT. The link will be in the video's description. Thanks for watching.